Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopidana Vallabha Grivadari Jaya Grivadari Gopidana Vallabha Grivadari Jaya Grivadari Yasodanandana Rajadanarandana Jaya Rajadanarandana Yasodanandana Rajadanarandana Jaya Rajadanarandana Yamunadiravarchari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamunadiravarchari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamunadiravarchari Jaya Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopidana Vallabha Grivadari Jaya Grivadari Gopi Jana Ballabha Grivadari Jaya Grivadari Yasodanandana Raja Dhanaranjana Jaya Raja Dhanaranjana Yasodanandana Raja Dhanaranjana Jaya Raja Dhanaranjana Yamuna Tira Varachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Yamuna Tira Varachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Yamuna Tira Varachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Vishnupad Paramhangsa Parvadakasharya Asadhara Sadushi Shiman His Divine Grace Shri Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Raj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Haribol Slava Zabrani Bhakta Slava Shri Guru Shri Gurangi Vam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhute Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tenamane Namaste Saraswatunde Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskadyade Satarane Om Agyanatimanandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalan Shri Guru Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Prijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakan Zvitam Scha Hey Krishna Karna Sindhu Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishuvana Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapa Druvyaschā Kripa Sinubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranitananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 14, King Pururava, enchanted by Urvashi. Text number 48. Eka eva para veda pranava sarva vanmaya devo narayano nanya ekognir varna eva cha eka eva para veda pranava sarva vangmaya deva narayano nanya ekagnir varna eva cha. Ladies. Eka eva para veda pranava sarva mangmaya devo narayano nanya eko nirvana eva cha. Eka, only one. Eva, indeed. Pura, formerly. Veda, book of transcendental knowledge. Pranava, Omkara. Sarvavak Maya, consisting of all Vedic mantras. Deva, the Lord, God. Narayana, only Narayan was worshipable in the Satya Yuga. Na anya, no other. Eka Agni, one division only for Agni. Varna, order of life. Evacha, and certainly. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. In the Satya Yuga, the first millennium, all the Vedic mantras were included in one mantra, Pranava, the root of all Vedic mantras. In other words, the Atharva Veda alone was the source of all Vedic knowledge. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, was the only worshipable deity. There is no recommendation for worship of the demigods. Fire was one only, and the only order of life in human society was known as Hamsa. Purport. In Satya Yuga, there was only one Veda, not four. Later, before the beginning of Kali Yuga, this one Veda, the Atharva Veda, or for some say the Yajurveda, was divided into four: Sama, Yajur, Rig, and Atharva, for the facility of human society. In Satyuga, the only mantra was Omkara, Om Tat Sat. The same name, Omkar, is manifest in the mantra Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, hare-rama, hare-rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Unless one is a Brahmana, one cannot utter Omkar and get the desired result. But in Kali Yuga, almost everyone is a Shudra, unfit for pronouncing the pranava Omkar. Therefore, the Shastras have recommended the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Omkar is a mantra or Mahamantra, and Hare Krishna is also a Mahamantra. The purpose of pronouncing Omkar is to address the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And the purpose of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra is the same. Hare, O energy of the Lord, Krishna, O Lord Krishna. Hare, O energy of the Lord, Rama, O Supreme Lord, O Supreme Enjoyer. The only worshipful Lord is Hari, who is the goal of all the Vedas, Vedais cha savar aham eva vedya. By worshipping the demigods, one worships the different parts of the Lord, just as one might water the branches and twigs of a tree. By worshipping Narayan, the all-inclusive Supreme Personality of Godhead, is like pouring water on the root of the tree, thus supplying water to the trunk, branches, twigs, leaves, and so on. In Satyuga, people knew how to fulfill the necessities of life simply by worshipping Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The same purpose can be served in the age of Kali by the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra as recommended in the Bhagavatam. Kirtanat eva krishnasya mukta sangha param vrajat. Simply by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, one becomes free from the bondage of material existence, thus becomes eligible to return home back to Godhead. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Buddhaya Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatunde Eve Gauravani Vicharane Nirvishesha Srimvadi Paskadyate Siddharane. As we heard from the Padma Purana, that Smarta Vyaksaratam Vishnur Vismartak Jatu Nakinchit Sarva Vidi Nisedyasyur Etira Eva Kinkara. That there's one rule and there's one regulation. The one rule is Smarta Vyak Satatam Vishnu. That one should always remember Krishna. That's called a Vidi, what we're supposed to do. And in the Sheda, what we're not supposed to do, Vismartak Jatu Nakinchit. At no time should we forget him. Sarva Vidi Nisedyasyur, of all the different Vedas and all the different injunctions in the Vedas, that Etiyar Eva Kinkara, that these two injunctions, always remember Krishna and never forget him. This is the very essence, or all the other injunctions are just servants of this two injunctions. To always remember Krishna and never to forget him. Now, in Satyuga, people were not so distracted. In other words, everything there is beyond the material manifestation there at that time is beyond our conception. Just like it's beyond our conception what it's like to be in the heavenly planets. If you're in the heavenly planets, generally speaking, most of the residents of heavenly planets are not going anywhere. They're just enjoying, because their senses are such that everything is enjoyable. So in Satyuga, everything is enjoyable, so there's no need to worship the demigods, because there's nothing that the demigods will supply that's going to make anything more enjoyable than it already was. Now, enjoyment generally means nice food, especially. So we can't imagine what the food was like in Satyuga. There were no chemicals, no fertilizers, no pesticides, no insecticides, no peoplecides. The water was pure, the air was pure, people's consciousness was pure, the earth was pure, everything was pure, and therefore, punyo gandha prathivyam cha tejas chasmi bhavaso. That Krishna is the original fragrance of the earth. Punyo gandha prathivyam cha tejas chasmi bhavaso. The weather was perfect all the time. There were no hurricanes, no tornadoes, except when Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha were born. Then everything was disturbed. That way they knew that something special was happening. Nowadays, if you have a hurricane, a tornado, you have an earthquake, it's nothing special, because demons get born all the time now. It's just a normal occurrence. When the weather's nice, people are wondering what happened. So we cannot imagine Satyuga. People live for 100,000 years if you died young. And proportionally, their bodily strength, their memory, everything else was proportionally many times more than we have now. Therefore, there was no need for the Vedas, at least multiple Vedas, because people could hear once. They were Shrutidaras. Their minds were not filled with all kinds of nonsense that diminished their memory. Instead, if they heard something once, they remembered it for the rest of their lives. Therefore, and things were simple. They didn't need elaborate sacrifices in order to think about Krishna. Because after all, if the aim is just to think about Krishna, then all you do is have to think about Krishna. That's sufficient. But when we're distracted by so many other things, then we have to perform elaborate sacrifices and other activities in order to bring our minds to think about Krishna. Just like in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna said that actually everything is very simple. When Arjuna is asked, well, I have a duty to perform. I'm supposed to be a Kshatriya. So why don't I perform my duty when I know I'm supposed to do it? Why do I want to do someone else's duty? So Krishna says, Kamesha, Krodesha, Rajaguna, Samudvava, Mahashano, Mahapatma, Vidinam, Iha, Varinam. It is lust only, Arjuna, born of contact with the mode of passion, which is later transformed into wrath, which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. Now, we can imagine that in Satyuga, people are completely undistracted, because when the material nature is comfortable, that itself is a distraction. But they weren't distracted to the extent that they wanted to do sinful activities, because they understood, why would we want to make, just like if you're cooking sweet rice and you're sane, why would you add sand to the sweet rice? It's not going to taste it any sweeter if you add sand. Similarly, if everything's so nice, one is still covered by the material nature, even in Satyuga, but still one is intelligent enough not to do something that's going to make things more unpleasant. One realizes that material nature is already perfectly arranged by Krishna, and any input we make into it to correct Krishna's perfect arrangement is going to make things worse. Therefore, they leave things alone, and the rain comes on time because they're performing what's required. They're thinking about Krishna. And that creates the atmosphere by the demigods become pleased, because the demigods are pleased by the subtle consciousness of the living entities, not so much by their grossly manipulating the material nature, but by their consciousness it creates a pleasing atmosphere in the universe. And the demigods reciprocate with rain. And from the rain, in Satya Yuga, there was no need for fertilizing the land because it was already fertilized. There was no need, practically speaking, of even plowing it because the seeds would automatically fall from the previous vegetable or fruit or grains, fall into the earth, and everything would grow automatically, practically speaking. There was no need for elaborate working because everything was being provided practically automatically by the material nature because one was pure in consciousness, and Krishna, material nature, would make all the arrangements. But people get bored after some time. That's the nature. As material nature gradually deteriorates as the ages come on, then many people go back to the spiritual world and they reach perfection by meditation, and others stay around thinking that maybe they can make some improvement. And generally the improvement is always start talking about how they can make some improvement, how they can, if you add a little bit more ghee, let's see what it tastes like, to the kachoris. And that's where the fall down comes. We become creative. We want to try out something new. And indeed, something new means something new for sense gratification. And then in Treta Yuga, people start eating a little bit too much, and their consciousness goes down. If you ever notice that before the feast, our consciousness is quite enlivened, great expectation, and sometimes if we ate a little too much, then our consciousness goes down and we want to go into hibernation. So even in our own experience, we can see eating too much, atyahara prayasascha prajalpa niyamagraha. Eating too much is the first thing first of all, we don't eat too much unless we're dissatisfied with our present state of consciousness, of experience, and therefore we want some other experience that would be more pleasurable. If our consciousness is not in Krishna consciousness, then of course we take eating as kind of like an emotional satisfaction. Because people don't just eat just to survive. When they eat too much, they eat because they want some emotional satisfaction. Or as they say in Spanish, barriga llena, corazón contento. When the stomach is full and the heart is content. So Treta Yuga begins in that way. That's fruit of activities. It's not by accident they call it fruit of activities, because even if you eat too much fruit, then you'll get into trouble. And everyone is working for fruit, or some kind of fruit. Either the fruit, the grains are also fruit, the vegetables are also a kind of fruit, and the fruits are fruits. Nuts, they're all fruits. And therefore, priyasas, as soon as we eat too much, or collect too much, so we can eat more, then automatically there has to be priyasas. We have to work harder, because material nature will not provide automatically when we want to do the wrong thing. Then material nature demands that we work hard in order to get what we want. Because people are very much enamored with the mode of passion, thinking that it's glorious, that they're working like a dog. They actually take credit. They give people honors if they work for new inventions, they work to build big buildings, or they lord it over big countries, whatever. They're given special credit for their passionate work. People in goodness who don't work, who are only meditating on the Supreme Lord, they're considered to be parasites. Obstacles to progress in human society. And when we talk about progress in human society outside of coming to the mode of goodness, we're talking about progress to hell. Paving the way to hell with great endeavor. Therefore, Krishna says that everyone in the material world, as soon as we come to the material world, we're covered by a material gross and subtle body. the human form of life is an opportunity to cultivate Krishna consciousness, which is compared to smoke in a fire. When there's smoke covering the fire, if you handle the fire carefully, then the smoke will disappear, and therefore one can see the blazing fire clearly. Otherwise, one may miss the fire and only see the smoke. So similarly, Krishna says, what we call, by chanting Omkar in Satya-yuga, when people heard Omkar, of course, they were not aware of Krishna's pastimes. Krishna comes once in a day in Brahma, which is once in every 4,300,000,000 years, which is not that often. So Krishna only comes once with his pastimes. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu only comes once in the day of Brahma, so people forget about it. Recently, only 500 years ago, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come, and therefore it's quite recent in terms of eternal time. In terms of material universal time also. It's quite recent because material universal time lasts for 311 trillion, 40 billion years, of which 500 years is not very much. So we have some memory of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and we have his books, his pastimes, but these things get lost in the course of time. Just like there are undoubtedly many, many persons who experienced Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and probably even had written about him, but those books are now lost. Similarly to Krishna, when he came, there are many, many persons who observed Krishna, but now we only have a few literatures. And even the Goswamis had to compile literature from all the different sources in order to give us our current Vaishnava literature. But Omkar, Krishna, was understood as Vasudeva, the Supreme Lord of the universes, and that's what generally people would meditate, especially on Paramatma, as Kardama Muni did in Satya-yuga. But when people even deviate even slightly mentally, they get reactions in Satya-yuga. Just to have the wrong thought, you get a reaction. Because if we get the right thought in Kali Yuga, we get some benefit. And even if we get a reaction, because every thought we have, we get a reaction for it, however subtle it may be. Everything we're thinking about has a manifestation in the gross body, but we're so used to suffering and being bewildered, it seems completely normal. It's only when things go right that we're surprised. We wake up when we go through a whole day and we're not in trouble, we're not in anxiety for one day, we're not depressed or overexcited. We think, what happened? Something must have been wrong. Did I sleep the whole day? I can't remember. I've been out of it. Tell me what's the newest news so I can put myself into anxiety again. So, in this age, we chant Hare Krishna. But we shouldn't think that, of course, we were in a special Kali Yuga where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Krishna has manifested their pastimes, once in a day in Brahma. And if we miss this opportunity, then we have to wait at least into another day of Brahma, considering that we'll have the human form of life, to chant Hare Krishna again, or to take it seriously. In any case, the fall down begins with eating too much, and here also, Sri Rupa Goswami has told us that if we want to come to Satya Yuga, then we have to avoid that. First of all, atakshi Krishna namadi, na bravad grayam indriyai, sevan mukhe hi jivado, swayam evas prate da. That one atakshi Krishna namadi, no one can experience Krishna with his covered senses, impure senses. And that's what we're trying to do, is experience Krishna, because Krishna is a reservoir of pleasure. And who wouldn't want to enter into a reservoir of pleasure? So we want to purify our senses so we can experience Krishna. Experiencing Krishna means also his internal energy, pleasure potency, Srimati Radharani, etc. So that's our aim, is to become fully awakened to our natural love for Krishna and love for everyone, that everything becomes pleasurable. So in order to do that, we have to go through the process. Satya-yuga, they turned into Treta when people started wanting to eat too much, and then when they wanted to do too much, in order to eat even more, then Dwapara Yuga started, and then from there, well, first of all, sacrifice was necessary so that the excess things they got from fruitive activities could be offered in sacrifice, so that their minds were not so attached to their results of the fruitive result. They knew it was going to be offered in sacrifice, and therefore they could understood with a purer mind, they could understand that their goal was to think about Krishna. Therefore, after the performance of sacrifice, when they gave up their excess, whatever they collected by fruitive activities, and they gave it back in sacrifice, then their minds were pure, because what they were attached to was thrown into a sacrifice for Krishna, and therefore they could think about Krishna. And after a while, people realized that why should I work so hard? Just let me think about Krishna. They come to Satya-yuga again, in their consciousness. But after atyahara, prayasas, when people would just do sacrifice in order to get more things, then Dwapara Yuga started, where people would have to go to the temple, and instead of performing the sacrifice, they'd offer things to the deity, so they have direct experience of the deity, without even having to go through all the sacrifice. And then gradually, by serving the deity, they become purified. They realize, I can't eat too much, I can't eat too little, I have to regulate my life. Because the deity worship means regulation, regulating one's life. And then when people wouldn't regulate their lives, we're in Kali Yuga, where there's no regulation. People eat it whatever they want, they sleep how much they can, they have as much sex with anything that goes, and they're willing to do anything to defend themselves. There's no rule and regulation, except to be an animal, more or less, in Kali Yuga. So, therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has introduced the chanting of the holy name, could be done anywhere at any time, that Krishna is giving his association. And on top of that, if we want to actually take advantage of the holy name and develop Krishna consciousness, then we have to find out we have to participate in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement. We don't have to follow the strict rules and regulations of the Vedas, because we can't do it. But spreading Krishna consciousness, which is the inner desire, one of the inner desires of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or one of the desires, I should say, that if we participate in that Leela of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then that's the rule and regulation that we can follow to get his mercy. Because that's the essence of what he's trying to achieve, is to bring people back to Godhead. So if we assist him in that, that's the perfect service to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We utilize whatever talents, whatever energies we have to spread Krishna consciousness, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally will give us his mercy and help us control our senses. So we eat prasadam lovingly, in a proper way. We do our service with love and attention in order to sacrifice to Krishna, and therefore we come to the platform of always remembering Krishna and never forgetting him. So we have those who participate in the chanting of the holy name. They're also participating in the Sankirtan movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And those who assist Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in distributing the holy name, then they get special credit to actually become elevated beyond Kali Yuga to beyond even Satya Yuga, back to the spiritual world. So we have a choice. We can chant Hare Krishna, we'll get something to eat, or we can chant Hare Krishna and participate in spreading the Sankirtan movement, either in home or outside the home, and go back to Godhead. Or we can chant Hare Krishna, get something to eat, and then when the Hare Krishna mantra, at the end of, after 10,000 years, when people start forgetting that that's the mantra for this age, then we we might find ourselves in a little difficulty. So better to take advantage of the situation now and not see what it's going to be like. And, I want to see the Bhagavatam in person. I want to see the whole thing. So let me come back and see what it's like after 10,000 years. I always want to see little pygmies, what they do. Not a good idea. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? Yes. Do we have a microphone?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, thank you for your class. Is something in the verse which I don't understand. It says, fire was one only. What does it mean?
Fire was one only? Good question. Let's see what it says in the Sanskrit. Ekadnir. There was only one fire. One division. Ekadnir. One division only for Agni. So it means that instead of having the Varnas, 4 Varnas, there was one, and that was only for Agni, which means that for illumination. The Brahmins there weren't any Shudras, there were not any Vaishyas. There were Shudras and Vaishyas, I'm sure, but the prominent one was Hangsas, and their aim was illumination. They had no other business than illumination, because Agni doesn't refer here to the demigod Agni, who says that they weren't worshipping the demigods, but they were worshipping illumination, higher consciousness. So the Shudras didn't have to assist in general, the Vaishyas didn't have to grow the food for the sacrifice, for the ghee, the milk, whatever, everything. So majority of the people at that time were simply interested in self-illumination.
Thank you.
Anything else? Yes. It's good exercise. After sitting down, it's those who get up and walk around, they get special credit. Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj. What can we do? Because sometimes we might not have taste for distributing the holy name.
I mean, sometimes. Well, you're quite exalted. I wish I come to the stage where most of the time I have a taste. What do? We tolerate our minds, because it's just a mental thing. As Krishna says, that which in the beginning may be bitter like poison, but at the end is just like nectar, which awakens one to self-realization, said to be happiness in the mode of goodness. So we can't expect to have taste all the time, any more than we can expect that when you're eating a feast, if you have a glove on your tongue, you're going to relish the feast all the time. If we take the glove off once in a while, we're doing quite well. So we can expect that because our senses and mind are covered by the illusory energy, most of the time it's going to require effort. But if we make that effort, then Krishna will give us His mercy, and we'll become purified, and then we'll get a little taste. We'll get a little zap of the internal energy, and we'll get a little taste. Then we think we're great devotees. We're Paramahamsas. I've already illuminated. Let me take a break and relax in the material energy for a while. I've already accomplished everything. And then we struggle. We went, why am I back in the illusory energy again? Because that's what we wanted to be. We became complacent. We got what we wanted, a little zap of the spiritual energy. Saying, thanks a lot, Krishna, I'll see you next Janmashtami. So we have to develop determination. And even when we get a little purified, the Maya will present something else to us that we even forgot about. Why don't you try this for a while? Yeah, why not? It's been a long time. Some Maya will try to trick us in so many different ways. And then when we're not feeling that same zap of spiritual energy, and Maya says, well, you're depressed, you need a little bit more sense gratification, make you feel good, tide you over till the next zap of spiritual energy. Relax and enjoy. And then we lose our determination. We forget it's going to take some effort to become Krishna conscious. It doesn't happen automatically. Anything else? Pala Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Ki Jai, Gaur Pimanande.